Hello, it's Genesis again with Land Justice Community Podcast, and we are two fellows, and my name is Genesis.
My name is Catherine.
And today we are interviewing our two special guests for AAPI month. And would you guys like to introduce yourselves?
Absolutely. Thank you for having us. I'm Chesa. I use he, they pronouns. I'm a non-binary queer Filipino American from Dallas, Texas, suburbia. I'm a person of many curiosities, so I tend to dip my toe in a lot of hobbies. I see myself as an early student of the land, both here in Turtle Island and also back home in the Philippines. So I've been learning more about herbalism, food as medicine, and also indigenous spirituality practices within the Philippines.
Thank you. And Alexia?
My name is Alexia. It's really exciting to be part of the podcast. I've been behind the scenes working with y'all at Land Justice Community School. I'm Taiwanese and grew up here in Austin, Texas, and been a long-time environmental justice organizer and really believe in using storytelling and traditional knowledge and centering that in our activism and work.
Thank you, guys.
I'd love to add what I've done professionally, if that helps. In a professional setting, I've also worked with trans and gender expansive folks on obtaining their gender-affirming hormone therapies, and also survivors of gender-based violence, particularly with their housing and employment needs.
Thank you. Chesa, I have a question for you, actually two. Can you talk about being queer and how has that identity shaped your work?
I love being queer.
Yes.
Queerness shapes everything about how I lead my life. I think it's brought so much vastness and plentifulness to how I lead my decision making and how I build relationships with folks. I have always been really close to my queer identity. I think growing up in Catholic private schools and also predominantly white institutions, folks like me, we gathered together. And so that was where I really, truly found my community the soonest and earliest in my life. And so for the longest time, I felt closest to my queerness as opposed to my Filipino identity. And I really didn't connect to my Filipino identity till out of college, which is pretty late.
For me, I kind of discovered my queer identity in college, and I went to school in New York, and I was also surrounded by a lot of badass Asian queer writers, artists,
Awesome.
organizers, and that's when I first started organizing in Chinatown against gentrification, imperialism, thinking about abolition, and starting to understand and connect my lived experiences with an analysis of the world. So it was just really beautiful to be surrounded by amazing community out there.
Thank you guys for sharing about that. Can you talk about working with indigenous Filipino communities?
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. I just came back from the Philippines. I went on a trip this past April, and I had the pleasure of visiting the Ifugao Center of Living Culture. And they're basically a family of Ifugao folks, which is an area in the Philippines. And they're one of the last farming communities that still do their indigenous farming practices. You know, a lot of people have modernized and use machines and whatnot to make it easier and to produce more. But we were able to visit their land, hike through the jungles and the mountains, and plant rice and process the harvest rice so that we could have food for the day. And they taught me so much about what it is to have an intentional relationship with the land. When I first visited the property, they told me to introduce myself. And so I poured a rice wine offering to the grass. I poured it onto the land and said hello to all the plant ancestors, the spirit guides present, and ascended masters, and told them my intentions for being here, that I'm visiting, and I hope to return someday. And yeah, so it's very much this mutual intentional exchange that I'm here to learn from them and also to help continue their traditions and their practices. I want to expand on that. My family has ancestry in the Manobo tribe, which is in a totally different region from Ifugao. And I'm actively trying to connect with the Manobo tribe. It's kind of difficult right now, but I have heard that they have one of the queerest indigenous cultures in the Philippines, and I'm let's be queer together. Please. So I hope to visit them someday.
Oh, that's nice.
Mhm.
Thank you for sharing. Okay, now for Alexia, what's your experience growing up in the community organizing space?
So I think a lot of what led me to the environmental justice space is my culture and like growing up with Buddhist and Taoist cosmologies. And my ancestry is also mixed with, on my Taiwanese side, with Austronesian and Hakka Chinese ancestry. And so I grew up with a lot of stories about ghosts, about tree spirits, the land, and always felt that connection and spent a lot of time just running around in the woods outside. When I was in high school is when I started getting involved through the youth climate movement. That got me connected to the environmental justice space in the US and learning from Indigenous and Black leaders here on how they're fighting against environmental racism, but also how they're restoring the land, rematriating the land, protecting the land, and kind of led me into a journey working in environmental research and policy spaces, and eventually starting a nonprofit just because I saw how the education that was around climate was very much just science and Western science, when in fact the root cause of the climate crisis is colonization. And so who do we need to look to for solutions is Indigenous people here on Turtle Island, but also across Asia, because actually, fun fact, 70% of the world's Indigenous population lives across Asia and the Pacific. And so I think that kind of decolonizing of my own education was really important in my journey in activism and organizing spaces.
Thank you for sharing. I agree that like we need to be like more educated, especially like of the colonization, because not like everybody knows, not everybody has the will to be educated about important stuff that's going around us, that's like has happened before.
A discussion I actually had there on the farm in the Philippines was the value of having that scholarly perspective, but also the real lived Indigenous perspectives. Having both is really important. Like, you can do your research and read the books and the research papers, but that's obviously from a very academic standpoint that doesn't usually come from the actual Indigenous communities. So go out there if you can, experience with them, and work hands-on with those communities. Yeah.
Thank you guys for sharing. My second question is, why does attending community events matter? Why does it matter to like be there?
I think showing up and building community is at the core of any movement, but also of building relationships with each other and sharing culture. And that's what we do as humans. Like at the end of the day, we're a collective.
A lot of us come from collectivist cultures, and we definitely lost that through imperialism and colonization. And so I think we're really in an era of bringing that back and normalizing that and creating third spaces everywhere. And there's so much value in just talking with each other and hearing about each other's perspectives, learning from each other. There's so much knowledge out there. And I don't know, I'm a very curious person. I'm always itching to learn more and more. So how can you not like want to be surrounded in community?
Yeah, I think a lot of our cultures like inherently do that. I know my grandma's always like, everyone come over, I'll feed you all the food in the world, all the fruit in the world. And even in the villages back in Taiwan, like there's always like a giant like pot of water, and it just collectively gets refilled. And it's for whoever passes by and needs water, especially in the summers because it's really hot. And just like little things and little details like that, just the way people show up for each other, for family, for friends when in need is very much like mutual aid. It's inherently part of a lot of our cultures already, and is also a tool for survival and a tool that we need in movement spaces and to create a different future and reality for ourselves.
Yes, I totally agree with what you guys are saying, because like it's important to just show up for like the community, for like the people that need help or that could help you guys also as well. So like it's really important to show up for one another.
Do you want to say something about the third space y'all recently helped create?
So like recently we had like a basketball ceremony, like opening ceremony for our brand new third spaces, because like it's important to have third spaces, especially like where you don't have to pay, where you can feel free to like feel like you belong somewhere, and like to communicate with others, because it's important for like everybody to just like have somewhere where they can easily transport, where they don't have to pay, where they don't have to pay to like feel like they have to belong there, but like somewhere where they could be with other people, talk to other people, meet new people, like just be within the community. It's really important to have their spaces, because it's somewhere where we could all be together instead of like feeling like we don't belong there.
I saw y'all's beautiful celebration. I really wish I could have been there.
Thank you. Yeah, it was really fun because like we had like different people. We had like the matcha pop up thing, and like there was dogs. There was like people who were playing like basketball. There's people roller skating, skating in general. People eating food. People like having fun. So it was like exciting to like see people like connect with each other. Like, cause you don't really usually see that like every day, you know. So like to me it was like oh, like there's actually people having fun, people who enjoy being with other people, you know, like just being there communicating with each other. So I really enjoyed that. My third question is, do you guys have any traditions at home that you guys do?
A lot of them. I'm trying to learn more of them now, like coming into my adulthood, like taking notes when my mom is talking. But like I said, I grew up a lot on like plant medicine and also traditional Chinese medicine, acupuncture, cupping, etc. Anytime anyone was sick or even just like preventative, my mom was always like, okay, I'm going to make, this tea, or I'm going to make this balm. And it was honestly pretty effective. I feel like me and my sisters benefited from it. And it's just really cool that there's like these like 5,000 plus year old like knowledge systems that are still preserved and that are effective. And I feel like nowadays Western science is finally understanding how they work and finally catching up to it. So I think that's a big part of what I want to learn more about and like dive into. And then my mom always has stories about everything. Like, I don't know if y'all can relate, but like any scenario, she's like back in the day or like ancient times or like some random ancestor. But just so many stories. And the older I get, the more like any situation happen, I'm like, wait, my mom told me a story that like is connected to this and also gives us a life lesson. So I think that's really beautiful. And then food as well is something that's really central to my household. My mom is a really, really good cook. And my grandma as well. Like she makes everything from scratch. Like in our little house, like there's always like so many leaves and like fruits and vegetables on the floor. And she's always like spends hours like chopping and cooking and making such abundant and delicious food.
That is so beautiful. I love the richness that you had in your upbringing and you continue to have in your family with all the cultures that are present. To share, I grew up very Catholic and there's some richness there. Not for me. But when I started rejecting that organized religion, I was kind of left with a blank page. I don't know what to do. I'm just not going to think about it. And so I hadn't started developing my spirituality and like practices and traditions at home until honestly this past year. I started taking a Filipino food as medicine course where I learned how to build an altar for food and honoring plant ancestors. So I'll do that anytime I cook when I have time to make an altar, trying to make it more of a habit, but little things here and there, and also calling upon benevolent spirit guides and ancestors for guidance as a form of prayer. I think that's been a really powerful thing for me lately because it's always been addressed to this Catholic God that felt oppressive, like an oppressive deity. So having other people to speak to and to feel like they have my back, it's been a really meaningful journey, and I'm just continuing to develop my own practices and traditions as I go.
Thank you guys for sharing. Do you guys like share like anything that you guys have learned from like these traditions or remedies, or like have you guys shared with anybody else?
Yeah, I can start. Growing up, my home life very much felt separate from the rest of the world. Like I remember actually in elementary school learning that people didn't know that about ghosts kind of the hard way. Like I remember talking about ghosts to my peers and they were like, oh, ghosts are not real. Like you're stupid. This is weird. And I genuinely, like ghosts were just such a normal part of my life that I didn't understand that some people didn't believe in ghosts. Like I didn't understand that it was something to believe in or not believe in, because I was like, of course they're there, you just don't see them. Like this is normal. And so I think after that I started kind of not really sharing my culture and talking about those spiritual practices and traditional practices because it felt so different than the Western society that I grew up with. But yeah, that's something definitely I'm like growing into and want to share more of, especially with like health and medicine. I have like there's so many jars at my house with like things fermenting and like balms and teas and herbs everywhere. So yeah.
Well, thank you, Alexia. Do you guys speak any other language? Like, what's your household communication at home?
I I grew up in a household where Tagalog and English was very commonplace. Even the older people in my family don't really know like deep Tagalog. It's always been Taglish even when they were growing up. And that's just a testament of the US imperialism, like how they converted their education systems to all be in English. And also nowadays your social status in the Philippines is determined by your English fluency and thus your ability to come here to the States and work, or some other Western part of the world. But myself, I've been really trying to learn and practice my Tagalog and also Spanish. I don't know. I think I'm decently fluent right now, maybe conversationally so. I just hope to continue learning more so that I can like truly connect with my people. And also hopefully I'm currently trying to find resources on the Manobo language so that if I ever am able to visit the tribe that I have ancestry with back home, I can connect with them on a more personal level.
I grew up speaking Chinese with my mom. I love Chinese. It's a beautiful language, especially like each of the character tells a different story. But it's actually not even like our native language. When my mom was in school, like Chinese was forced upon it and you couldn't speak any other languages. My grandparents both speak like 4 different languages, which is really cool. And I always, every time I visit them, I'm like, I'm going to start learning, but I haven't. So maybe this episode will be like pressure for me to actually commit. I think it's just hard. It's not languages that you would find on Duolingo or like online at all. So unless you're back home in the villages, it is hard to like practice and speak it. And oftentimes it's just the elders in the community that still speak the languages. So that's definitely a challenge, but I do hope to learn them one day.
Yes, we need more resources and teachers to keep our indigenous languages alive. I think something interesting that was I found visiting in the Philippines was folks in the province are often fluent in like 4 languages: Tagalog, English, and their regional language, and then their tribe's language. Like it's just normalized to be multilingual. I thought that was fascinating.
Yeah, cause like to me, I feel like learning other people's languages or just another language in general is like a way, like a form to communicate with others, get closer to them. Do you guys know like how does the climate crisis affect Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders?
To answer your question, I'm going to bring up a current event that hits very deeply for me right now. On April 19th of this year, there was a massacre in Negros, which is kind of a southern part of the Philippines. If you look up Negros 19, there were 19 civilians who were murdered by the Philippine military. These civilians were students, children, farmers, activists who were just there to work on the sugarcane fields. And this is an ongoing agenda under the Marcos Jr. administration to target specifically environmental defenders. Literally anyone getting in their way of their ability to profit off the land. And this is not a new thing at all. It's been happening in the Philippines through the US imperialism, Spanish imperialism. It's happening in Palestine, Congo, Sudan. It happened here in Turtle Island. It just hit especially home for me because I was there kind of doing the same thing. I came with the intention to work on the land and to spend time with farmers, indigenous farmers, and with no idea that the presidential administration of the Philippines was targeting those kind of folks. And so that's been weighing heavily on the country right now. Unfortunately, I did also hear that on May 16th, there were 5 more victims who were murdered, who were also environmental defenders. So it's ongoing, and it's going to continue to happen. And so there's the importance of organizing work and just bringing this to people's attention and knowing how to help.
I love how you brought that up because it's such an important topic, and a lot of people don't realize that Indigenous land stewards are being murdered for their activism across the world and in Asia, especially the Philippines. And I really always talk about how colonization is the root cause of the climate crisis, and most of Asia has been colonized, and it's disconnected a lot of people from their land, from their traditional practices, from their sustainable practices that they had for, hundreds and thousands of years before colonization. And I think it's important to look at the US's connection with Asia as well. A lot of our trash and a lot of our waste is sent there. Another thing I want to bring up is the Pacific Islands. I feel like when we talk about AAPI month, oftentimes, unfortunately, Pacific Islanders get left out because they kind of just like squished these two communities together. I mean, even Asia, that's like 60% of the world. There's so many differences. It's such a large continent. But the Pacific Islands have been colonized, like their traditional practices erased and banned for so many years, and they're still fighting to get their land back. A lot of the sugarcane plantations, a lot of the agricultural exploitations really damaged the land and planted a lot of invasive species as well. And then here in the United States, in the environmental justice movement, I know Asian Americans have played a key role in both, shaping the movement, of writing the 1991 Principles of Environmental Justice. It's interesting because with Asian American data, if you decongregate it, there's a lot of different experiences, like a lot of rich Asians are not experiencing the same environmental issues as like working class communities. And a lot of working class communities are next to Superfund sites, are experiencing disproportionate cancer rates and other issues that other communities of color face.
Do you guys think it's important to like educate more people about this, about how it hasn't been going on just recently, how it's been going on forever?
Absolutely. I want to specifically speak on my experience talking to locals in the Philippines and how just seeing the news, there was no coverage of the Negros 19. No one's talking about the massacres that are going on. And a lot of local Filipinos and even Filipinos from the diaspora still pride themselves on how adjacent they are to Westernness and thank the U.S. for what they've given them for their time of imperialism. And so it feels like we still have our rose-tinted glasses on, and that's where the importance of education comes in. We need to know that this is still going on, and especially why I think Filipinos should pay attention to what's happening in Palestine, because that's exactly what's happening in their own land and what has happened for centuries.
Yeah, I'll jump in. It's the same thing in Taiwan. I will not go into Taiwan politics because that will lead to an insane amount of hate comments with like Taiwan and China and the US. But I will say the Taiwanese government is obviously a colonial government, and parts of the government has very close ties to the US government, and parts of it also has very much Zionist ties, which is incredibly harmful and problematic. And I'm so glad you're bringing up Palestine as well, because I think people forget that's West Asia, y'all. Like, this is part of the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they often get left out of conversations about like Asian Americans. I think as someone who's East Asian, I'm always like, we gotta talk beyond like China, Taiwan, Japan, Korea, because that's a very small part of Asia and only one experience. But yeah, what's happening in Palestine is very much a climate issue. It's very much a colonization, imperialism, ecocide. And we all should be standing in solidarity because it's tied to our struggles for liberation. Education is really important because I actually didn't really learn about Asian American history until college. And I took a class on Asian American history and like intentionally went out of the way to learn about like what has been the history of Asians in this country, in Turtle Island. And I think that should be part of Texas history, should be part of a history curriculum. But unfortunately, what we are taught in schools is only white history.
Thank you guys for sharing on that. Can you talk about how immigration laws impact Asian Americans?
Immigration is obviously a topic that's come up a lot recently because of the continuous ICE attacks. Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders have also been impacted. I think the deportations have increased by something like fourfold under this Trump administration right now. And a lot of the history of our immigration laws in the US were actually rooted in anti-Chinese sentiments. There's a lot of art, especially from like how Border Patrol was created, of like they were scared that Chinese people were coming in through the Mexican border. There's like a long history of like the Chinese Exclusion Act and even the Muslim ban, and how these immigration laws have impacted Asian Americans. At the same time, too, that's why we see a lot of top 1% coming into the US. Like if there's a lot of rich Asians because they're only letting in the super rich Asians. Like they don't want the working class Asians to come in the US, if we're going to be honest. And that contributes to the data of like who we see is in the United States as well.
Thank you for sharing on that.
So continuing on the conversation, what lesson can different communities learn from each other's resistant movements?
Can we show my stack of books? I brought some of my favorite books by Asian American and Pacific Islander authors and scholars. I think it's so important that we have an international perspective because there's so many case studies of resistance, of like successful protection of the land, of land back movements from across Asia, and also led by Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders in Turtle Island and in the Pacific that we can learn from. And the more we share across cultures, across countries, the more we can build a stronger strategy.
Speaking today about how colonization has impacted us in different parts of the world, and it's all pretty much the same flavor in different lands. We have that, I guess, shared trauma and that shared deep history with each other. And again, like learning from each other's ways of resistance and liberation and the different ways that communities came together and fought against these big, powerful, oppressive systems. There's so many different strategies and strategies that work for different types of groups and populations, and just knowing what's out there and what can work. We can only learn from each other and be creative with each other.
Absolutely. I love y'all's perspective. So do you think social media changes the way people learn about global struggles and how they organize?
I have a love-hate relationship with social media. I post on there because I do think, unfortunately, talking about the work helps with getting grants, helps with getting support. At the same time, short-form content is so limited in the ability to have nuance and to really dig into topics. So I think it's really important to share things online, but most importantly, to be in community with each other and to build those relationships with each other. Because at the end of the day, it has to be connecting to the land, and that relationship you cannot develop online.
I think social media is a great starting point to learn about something new, to learn kind of the higher level topics and current events or history. But it's really important to do more of that digging yourself and to also, yes, gather in community and to learn directly from folks who are, I say learn from folks who are experiencing that if they're offering that to you, not to extract that knowledge from them. That's really important and something that's delicate to balance, but really just listening to their needs and not just sensationalizing things and spreading things because it makes you feel good and like a good person, you know, actually doing the work is where real change can happen.
Absolutely. I agree with y'all's statements. So this question is like more interesting, at least to me, because I love ghost stories, not gonna lie. Were there any ghost stories or superstitions y'all's family believed in?
I have a lot. Like, this might need to be a separate podcast episode. Yeah, I grew up with like so many ghost stories and it was pretty normalized. And also, I actually lived in Singapore for a little bit during my childhood. I'm not from there, but grew up there and really quickly learned that there are certain ghosts. I won't say their names because you're not supposed to, but they're like at this specific park or like by the coast. A lot of people who do national service as well have really creepy ghost stories. And it's interesting because if you Google it, a lot of where the ghost stories take place are like sites of like historical trauma and like colonization, places where people were tortured or people were murdered. And it's pretty common that everyone just knows the ghost is there. Everyone has a story about it. It's pretty accepted. Like everyone's like, avoid this area or don't do this at night. And I actually was really afraid of ghosts for a very long time because of like negative experiences as well. And like a lot of people in my family see ghosts and like see spirits. So I have a lot of stories.
Have you ever been scared of this, or do you just think about it and like try to move on from it?
No, I've had some very scary experiences. Actually, in my room, there's a giant tapestry. It's actually Sanskrit spells. It was gifted to me by a Buddhist monk, and it's to protect from spirits interfering at night and from nightmares.
Wow.
I know I have a lot. We could really go down. Like by a bonfire, I could scare some people.
Hang after this and I want to hear your story. Yeah, over a bonfire. There's no like ghost stories that I can explicitly remember. They were told to me when I was quite young and also in Tagalog, so I was kind of like, what's going on? But I do have a few members of my family who feel them very strongly and have they're usually scary stories, like not typically a positive interaction with ghosts and spirits. One silly superstition that we have in my home is that, and it's not related to ghosts at all, it's that if you orient your bed facing a mirror, you'll go through the portal of that.
Wait, we have that too.
Really?
That's why no mirror is allowed in the bedroom.
Yeah.
My whole life. And if you have a mirror, you have to cover it up with like a sheet or something. You're not supposed to
Oh,
have a mirror in the
really?
bedroom.
We're not that strict.
Okay. My
Sometimes
mom
I'm
was
like-
strict about it. No mirrors in the bedroom.
Yes, my mom has a mirror in her room. She literally covers it every single night.
I'm telling you, they know.
Oh.
I personally have to flip my mirror to face the wall, and
Yeah.
so I don't have to.
Y'all don't want to know
I
what's
believe
in the
it.
portal?
No, no. Another one is don't whistle at night.
Oh, yeah.
I've heard that my
Heard
whole
that.
life. And I've actually, it's really cool. I've had friends from, like, I have a friend from Kenya who said that it's a thing over there too. And I'm like, they knew. Don't whistle at night. The spirits will come for you. Be careful.
I learned that, like, in the heat of the Philippines, if you whistle, it'll bring about wind.
Oh,
I thought that was nice.
nice. During the day. Don't do it
During
at
the
night.
day.
Yeah.
This is, like, not related to superstitions, but a fun fact I found out recently was that the story of Turtle Island is also almost identical to a story in the Philippines about this island called Bohol. There was a sky woman and everything, and I just thought it was very interesting that there's so many parallels from totally opposite sides of the world.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm noticing that with, like, our superstitions.
Yeah, well, thank y'all for y'all stories. I think that's really interesting. And now, Genesis, back to you.
Okay, so in under 30 seconds, which I will set a timer for, you guys will share your hot takes on Asian food in Austin. You guys
Okay.
ready? Okay, go.
Wait, go first.
Okay,
Yeah.
I love ho-hos for
Mhm.
Cantonese food.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely love sip munch.
My hot take is just there's not that much good food in Austin.
Mm-hmm.
That's fair.
If you want good food, go hang out with my mom.
I love
There's-
Lao Lao.
Yeah, I do. Their coffee's good. I like Asia Cafe, which is like super north. They have good Chinese food. I'm not saying there aren't good ones, but overall,
Listen.
It's sparse. It's sparse. It's hard.
don't
out
come
here.
for me. I'm sorry. My food standards are too high. I was spoiled by night markets and my mom.
Aw.
It's not my fault. I'm innocent.
Okay, well, thank you guys. It was really nice to have y'all. This was a fun episode.
It wasn't.
Yeah.
You're like, this is a fun episode.
Okay, thank you guys. It was really fun to have you guys to talk about this. It's the Asian American Pacific Islander Month. Thank you guys for watching. Tune in to the next episode. Thank you.
Thank
And we're out.
you.
Oh, thank you.